Dolphins and Jets find themselves right in the middle of a jam-packed race for the AFC wildcard. Every win is critical. Coverage of the Dolphins and Jets. Sunday at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio.
Coming up on today's podcast, Tony Romo done for the season. How much hope is left for America's team? And the bad man leads the Packers to another bad loss. And does the latest Eagles blowout loss signify an end to the Chip Kelly era in Philadelphia? The First Take podcast starts right now.
Romo from a crowded pocket. Fires, intercepted. Picked off left side. Coleman angling right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown.
Romo straight drop. Bouncing. Looking. Fires, intercepted. Picked off Carroll under the 30-yard line. Kuechly scores a touchdown. And stiff arms Romo for good measure.
And Romo goes down. And Romo is still down on his back.
Honestly, I'm just very disappointed in not giving our team a chance to win today. I don't know what's going to happen, obviously, but we'll see tomorrow. It's just disappointing right now.
Well, not a pleasant day for Cowboys fans. Nonetheless, hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Welcome into First Take. I'm Prim Sarifapat, filling in for Molly Kiram. Skip Bayless joins us from New York City, and Stephen A. Smith is in Philadelphia. So, gentlemen, how was your Thanksgiving?
Well, my voice is a little messed up and all of that stuff, but I must confess as to why that is. Outside of enjoying myself with my family, I must confess that I was laughing so hard at the Dallas Cowboys that I ultimately lost my voice. So that's the situation, but it doesn't matter because I'm here and I'm looking forward to listening to Skip while I just sit back and smile. It was a wonderful Thanksgiving.
I feel so sorry for you and your voice, but the truth is I feel much sorrier for myself because for me, Prim, Black Friday has turned into fade to Black Friday for my Dallas Cowboys. Thank you very much.
All right,
Yes.
So let's get right to it. Docile Stephen A. Smith, this is going to be fun. All right, over in Jerry's world, the Cowboys fell to the Panthers 33-14. Not only did they lose a game, according to ESPN's Ed Werder, the Cowboys lost their starting QB, Tony Romo, for the rest of the season with a broken left clavicle. So, Skip, what's your takeaway?
First of all, Prim, I want to congratulate my friend Stephen A. Smith for, number one, correctly predicting that Carolina would defeat my Dallas Cowboys, though if memory serves, Mr. Smith, I think you thought it would be a little closer than it was. But I'm going to let that go because, number two, and more important, you very correctly predicted that my quarterback, Tony Romo, would throw a pick six in this game, and he didn't just throw one. He threw you 2 pick sixes. So I understand you have lost your voice screaming for Carolina Panthers, returning Tony Romo interceptions for touchdowns. I get all that because you were so right that you were right on the third play of the game when my quarterback, Tony Romo, threw his first pick six. I got to tell you, just thanks to my Ernestine, I had a great Thanksgiving dinner before this game, and with the first pick six, I was ready to throw it all up. And then, before I could sit back and try to get comfortable, near the end of the first half, as you well know, he throws another pick six that makes it 20-3 Carolina. And then on the very next play after the kickoff, he throws another interception, again to Kuechly, that set up 20-3 Carolina at halftime. And my Dallas Cowboys season was officially over. Now, we all know my quarterback, Tony Romo, did re-injure his clavicle or collarbone around the end of the third quarter. But today, Stephen A. Smith, I'm not going to give him any kind of pass on the day after Thanksgiving because we all know he played last week in Miami, and he played pretty darn well. And yesterday, I watched Tony Romo crumble under the pressure of being this team's savior. Tony Romo, I've watched him too long and too hard, and I've seen him play a whole lot of poor halves in all my time as a lifelong Dallas Cowboy fan. But I got to tell you, Yesterday's first half was the single most disastrous half I have ever seen Tony Romo play. I was actually expecting Tony Romo yesterday. I got arts and craftsy Tony Romo. And after a while, I was actually missing Brandon Weeden yesterday. It got that bad for me. I mean, I look at these numbers, Stephen A., and I say, my God, for me, happy Thanksgiving quickly turned into an all-time crappy Thanksgiving. I'm sorry. It was that bad for me. You were exactly right. You deserve to laugh at me because I deserve it today. So I'm going to give you the stage. I'm not going to say another word, and please go ahead and ridicule me. I deserve it.
Well, you do deserve it. You know, you're lucky my voice is messed up today, because trust me, I'd give it to you a hell of a lot worse than I usually do. But I will acknowledge I'm getting just as much enjoyment listening to you self-deprecate yourself and really kick yourself in the you know what for making the predictions that you made. The fact of the matter is Tony Romo is 35. He's had a bad back. Now he's got a bad collarbone, and certainly I was not laughing when he got injured. I don't wish that on anybody, but I do recall predicting that to you as well. I said I didn't wish it happened, but I think that Carolina's defense, as ferocious as they are, particularly in light of the fact that they actually came in undefeated and was still an underdog to a 3-7 Cowboys squad, where it was incredibly insulting. And we'll visit that even more a little bit later on in the show with Josh Norman and what he had to say about them and Des Bryant in particular. What it comes down to is that what it comes down to, Skip, is that long before Tony Romo got hurt, he was looking god-awful. That it's just that simple. He had already thrown 3 interceptions. He looked completely lost and discombobulated. They were in his face. They were applying pressure. And more importantly, the receivers that he customarily rely upon were not getting open. And so when you look at that combined with the fact that you weren't going to be able to do but so much running the football because Darren McFadden, your 100-yard rusher on at least several occasions this year, had 10 carries for 11 yards because Kuechly was monitoring the run game, just like a surgeon, just dissecting it, picking it apart, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, when you just look at it from that perspective, it is what it is. The Dallas Cowboys lost to a better team yesterday. Tony Romo got exposed yesterday. And I think the time has arrived for Dallas Cowboy fans to be looking for a new quarterback. I know that Tony Romo can play, but we don't know how healthy this guy is going to be able to be moving forward with the collarbone, with the back, with age and attrition having kicked in, now being 10 years where he'll have a grand total of 2 playoff victories on his docket. The fact is that one can make the argument that the only reason why Tony Romo was still relevant is because he had people like you and Jerry Jones loving him so much. But it doesn't mean that he was worthy. On Thanksgiving Day, for the second consecutive year, they got shellacked. 33-10 last year, 33-14 this year, which was really 33-7. So whether it's 66-24 or 66-17, the reality of the situation is that the Dallas Cowboys got blown out. They got annihilated. They got embarrassed. They got humbled. And it was to a better football team. Tony Romo got exposed yet again when the lights shine brightest and it's time to show up. Yes, he has produced on many occasions in the fourth quarter, but almost never when it counts most. This is the Tony Romo that I know. It happened. I'd love to tell you I was shocked and surprised. I'm a bit perplexed and befuddled, but that's not the case. I didn't expect him to be that bad, but I did expect him to be bad enough for them to lose. And that is exactly what happened. I hope now, Skip Bayless, that you will just give up on your Cowboys and understand and soak it in that your season is over and whatever aspirations you have for them will have to be in the year 2016 because it will not be now. It is over. I need you to tell the viewers for First Take that you accept the fact that your Cowboys are done, that they are officially irrelevant, and that they have no business, zero business, being America's team, because America is the land of the free, the home for the brave, and the greatest country in this nation, in the world, I'm sorry. And the bottom line is a mediocre, unproductive, perennial, perpetual losing franchise like the Dallas Cowboys have no business being called America's team. Now let me drink my tea.
If you had listened to me opening this show by completely falling on my own sword, you would have heard me say that I declared my Cowboy season over with the second pick six. So let's get that straight. Now let me correct you on several points that you erroneously made. I gave you the stage.
Please.
I let you ridicule. Now I'm going to correct you. My Dallas Cowboys are not the inferior team to the Carolina Panthers when they are healthy. I picked my Cowboys to win the NFC and get to the Super Bowl when healthy. If Tony Romo had not gotten hurt in Game 2, if Des Bryant hadn't got hurt in Game 1 and had a plate inserted into his foot, we would be having a very different conversation. Because I'm going to remind you, last year, irrelevant Tony Romo lapped the entire NFL field in QBR. The whole field, AFC, NFC, he lapped them in QBR. He should have been the MVP over that has-been, that used to be Aaron Rodgers, because Tony Romo had the best season. He was the clutchest quarterback by statistic last year in the National Football League. He beat Detroit in the first round of the playoffs, and then he beat the Packers at Lambeau in round 2 of the playoffs for the Dallas Cowboys. But of course, it was a robbery because that was a catch by Des Bryant. So let's get it straight. You can ridicule me with facts, not with erroneous half-truths.
Well, I'd like to respond to that, Skip Bayless. Number one.
You're welcome to.
Number one, you're absolutely right. I think the Cowboys would have ran away with the NFC East had Tony Romo not gotten hurt and Des Bryant not gotten hurt. But the fact of the matter is that last year when Tony Romo was healthy, that was an aberration. That's not the norm because he usually gets hurt. That's point number one. Point number two, even with healthy, I still don't believe that we would have been far removed from the conversation that we're having right now, because I believe that even if healthy, even if they had been winning football games, that they would have lost yesterday to the Carolina Panthers, because I think Carolina's defense would have rattled them. That's point number two. Point number three, when you look at Tony Romo, the fact remains that you sit up there and you look at him and you go off of last year. As far as I'm concerned, it's actions coming home to roost against the Dallas Cowboys. When you had a DeMarco Murray, regardless of what we're seeing in Philadelphia from him these days, behind that massive offensive line in Dallas, which is pretty elite, what you had was a situation where he got 392 carries. He had 449 overall touches. It helped to shield and protect Tony Romo. Jerry Jones got a bit comfortable, thinking that behind that massive offensive line, it didn't matter who we had, we could still be effective, because it wasn't about DeMarco Murray. It was about that offensive line. And it is proven not to be the case. Whether you got Joseph Randle getting himself in trouble because he's stealing something from a department store, or he's just not running continuously. Whether it's I'm not joking. Whether it's Darren McFadden being inconsistent, although he's been healthy, it doesn't matter what the situation is. The fact is that the Dallas Cowboys find themselves in this particular situation because they got cocky with the comfortability they developed off of last year's 12-4 season. Rather than recognizing that you have been so far removed from championship contention and leaving a good thing alone, the Dallas Cowboys got arrogant and said, well, you know what? We can afford to do this, that, and the other. And they found themselves in this particular situation. So as a result, you deserve what you get. You messed up a good thing. You had a good thing going. All you had to do was remain status quo, and you would have been fine. You didn't do it, and that's why you're paying this price.
They messed up nothing. They got hurt. The quarterback went down in Game 2, the best receiver in football by your acclamation. You're with me on this. Des Bryant got hurt in Game 1. Game over. Sorry. Well, that's not arrogance. That's just bad luck.
I'd like to say this, and I don't think you're understanding my point. My point is this. I believe if DeMarco Murray had never left the Dallas Cowboys, even with Tony Romo getting hurt, the Dallas Cowboys still would have won at least 3 of those 7 games, strictly by running the football down your throat week after week after week. Now, I could be wrong, but that's where I'm coming from. That's my personal opinion. I believe that they would not have lost 7 straight had the team remained intact, even with Des Bryant having gotten hurt in week 1, ultimately coming back 2 weeks before Romo, even with Romo being going 7 straight games. I think that the Dallas Cowboys probably would have won 2 to 3 of those 7 games. And as a result, they would at least be tied with the New York Giants right now. That's what I'm trying to say when I'm talking about continuity, cohesiveness, chemistry. I know these are words that are foreign to you when it comes to your Cowboys because, I mean, they pass gas. It's perfume to you. But in the end, they stunk yesterday. They've been stinking. And at some point in time, you're going to have to realize that.
Even through these 7 straight losses, they still were one of the top rushing teams in pro football in yards per carry. I don't want to hear any of that. Okay, but my point is, I give it up to you today. You could be right. This could be the beginning of the end of Tony Romo. I got you. I've given up on this season. I even tweeted last night that, hey, it's time for my Cowboys to join the race for the first pick in the draft because now they're only 1 game out of worst in the National Football League. I give you that. I conceded last night. I awarded the NFC East to your New York Football Giants. Then this morning I looked at the Washington Redskins schedule. Maybe they're still in it. But the one team that is no longer in it is my Dallas Cowboys. So I concede.
I'll stop there. That's good enough for me.
So the Cowboys find themselves in a very rare position. They are now 3-8 for just the 3rd time since 1990. You guys talked about Tony Romo. He's 35 years old. We're going to talk about his future later. Meanwhile, over at a cold and rainy Lambeau Field, the Packers fell to their NFC North rivals, the Bears, 17-13. Aaron Rodgers' numbers were mediocre at best. 22 of 43, 200-some yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. He was unable to get his team into the end zone in the Green Bay's final possession. The Packers, guys, have now lost 4 of 5 after a 6-0 start. So, Skip, let's go to you first. What's your takeaway?
Stephen A. Smith, now it's my turn. Thank you very much, Prem, for giving me the stage. I'm wondering if Stephen A. is going to completely lose his voice on this topic.
Maybe.
How sweet it was. I could not make this stuff up. Let's be clear about this. Aaron Rodgers lost to Jay Cutler at Lambeau Field in a big night game on Brett Favre night. Oh, it was too beautiful to be true for me. I actually got a little bit of sleep. I thought I couldn't sleep after the Cowboy game, but that game, that made me sleep restfully after that, Stephen A. Smith. And I appreciate Aaron Rodgers for all he's done in the last 5 weeks. Because the quarterback that you have proclaimed, the greatest I've ever seen, he looks ordinary to me for 5 straight weeks. Is it possible Aaron Rodgers has looked skittish in the pocket? He's looked incredibly unsure of himself. He looked once again last night wildly erratic. The greatest quarterback you've ever seen, the bad man that we hear again and again on this show. He just looks bad to me. Flat out, straight up, bad. And let me count the ways. 77 yards passing at Denver. Then that blown 4th and goal play at Carolina in which he admitted he saw something and got scared. Then the home loss to 1-7 Detroit. Then 47% passing at Minnesota. Then last night, a QBR of 21 on scale of 0 to 100. And a home loss to the quarterback you have ridiculed most on this show, Jay Cutler. And worst of all, last night, Aaron Rodgers looked shockingly unclutch. Unclutch? With 3:18 left at Lambeau Field, he threw an interception to Tracy Porter. Then 3rd and goal late in the game from obviously close in. 3rd and goal to win the game. He throws some little puff pass, nothing on it, to James Jones over on the side of the end zone. And Tracy Porter has plenty of time to rally, catch up, knock down ball. Then 4th and goal to win the game. Aaron Rodgers breaks contain. He's outside the pocket. He's scrambling. And he throws too hard and too high and too behind Davante Adams for a wild incompletion that ends the game. Are you kidding me? Aaron Rodgers? I've seen enough, and please don't ever again bring to me on this show that Aaron Rodgers is even in the same conversation with Tom Brady. The floor is now yours.
Please, man, I ain't paying attention to your nonsense. That's just asinine. The fact of the matter is
Oh,
this.
really?
All night long. That's right. I said it. All night long, you got receivers that couldn't get open, particularly when they had when Chicago had its goal line stand. You got 2 receivers that dropped passes. You, Richard Rodgers, you got to catch that. The pressure's on. You're sitting up there, and you're Davante Adams. You got to catch that. Okay? Don't get me started with Randall Cobb either. These guys spent most of the night incapable of getting open or running half-ass routes. I mean, don't give me that. I don't want to hear that. Aaron Rodgers showed up. Aaron Rodgers didn't have any help. And that's why the Chicago Bears won that game last night. I don't want to hear that at all. It means nothing to me what you're saying, because you are literally showing yourself as the hater that you are, okay? Because there's no doubt in my mind. I'm watching these games last night. When we were talking about the Cowboys, I was at my sister Carmen's house eating my lasagna while I was laughing hysterically about the Cowboys. Then I went over to my mama's house, and I was eating up her delicious food, her and my Aunt Rita, and I'm sitting up there and watching these guys incapable of getting open, and it just ruined my whole appetite, because I knew that you were going to come on the air bloviating your nonsense the way that you are about Aaron Rodgers. I mean, give me a break. Guys got to get open, man. I don't see how you can talk about Aaron Rodgers and not mention Cobb, Rodgers, Davante Adams, James Jones. I don't understand how you could do something like that. But, you could go ahead and do it. You could have some fun with it. But I'm not buying it. You can chirp all you want to. Not last night. He was awful against Denver. I'll give you that. He could have played better against the Lions. I give you that. Last night, these guys were not getting open. It was just that simple.
We're talking about the Chicago Bears. You can't name one player on the Chicago's defense except maybe Tracy Porter, who I just named twice. You got to come to grips with the fact this man is losing it. I just gave you 5 straight games in which he is losing it. Tom Brady keeps losing receiver after receiver, and he keeps playing like the runaway
5 straight
MVP.
Games. 5 straight games. What did he do against Minnesota?
Yeah. He completed 47% of his passes, which is Tebow-esque. That's what that is. Tebow-esque.
He didn't throw.
That's not Aaron Rodgers. That's not that guy.
He didn't throw for. Let me tell you something, man. How do you sit up there and say that when you see these receivers, they can't get open? How do you see that?
Oh, please. Oh, please. You got to give it up. The Chicago Bears are now coming alive. Jay Cutler outplayed Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau. How do you respond to that? Jay Cutler.
I respond to that by saying Chicago's defense played better against Green Bay's receivers than Green Bay's defense played better against Alshon Jeffrey. How about that?
Please.
That's what I'll say.
How about I rest my case? I think you got nothing.
You can rest it all you want to. It has no credibility with me. Sorry. Nope.
And are you sure you didn't go to your mama's? You sure you didn't go to your mama's house last night and have a little too much dessert and just fall asleep during the Aaron Rodgers game? Is that possible? You just didn't see what happened?
I fell asleep right after. I will admit that. And I didn't eat all of her food because I was so disgusted with what I was seeing from Green Bay. I'll openly confess that, but that's about all.
All right. I think we're even.
Okay.
Nothing like losing your appetite over a team.
Oh, please. The Cowboys, what happened with the Cowboys compared to what happened with Aaron Rodgers? Even?
I'll take it.
Aaron Rodgers still has 7 wins.
Jay Cutler,
you could go ahead.
Vanderbilt's own Jay Cutler prevails at Lambeau. Thank you.
Hey, if it makes your weekend better, I'm all for it, Skip, because I don't wish that on you. I don't want you more depressed than you already are for your whole weekend. I don't wish that on Ernestine, who you know I love dearly, okay? I want you to be okay. So if that's what you need to do to convince yourself to have a good Saturday and a good Sunday, you have my blessing. It's all yours, but we both know better.
I'm now
we know
happy.
Better.
Happy day after Thanksgiving.
Smile about.
Whatever.
The Eagles were not the ones doing the feasting. Instead, they were the ones being feasted on by the Detroit Lions 45-14. The Eagles have now dropped 3 straight in 4 of their last 5. And Chip Kelly has his fingerprints all over this as the head coach and also as the GM. So, Stephen A., is this the end of Chip Kelly?
Well, no, only because you have 5 games to go in the regular season, and Jeffrey Lurie is not the kind of person that would make a move in the middle of the season. The only way that Chip Kelly would be going immediately, Skip, is if Chip Kelly had a college job that he wanted to get, and you obviously have to make that decision as soon as possible because their season is about to end, and you've got to hop on one of those opportunities. Outside of that, I think Chip Kelly will last the season. I do not believe he will be back. I do not believe he deserves to be back. The Philadelphia Eagles right now are an atrocity. And it's not just because they've given up 45 points over the last 2 games, which is a franchise record. It's because of the way they look. They vacillate back and forth. Yes, there's effort, but there also appears to be apathy and disinterest. There also appears to be a lack of effort. The frustration has reached the boiling point. There's division within the locker room with people pointing fingers at one another. There's a coach that doesn't seem to have his fingerprints on anything. You listen to people talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, they talk about how he's got his head down. He doesn't engage in eye-to-eye contact, doesn't communicate with his own players. He's very distant and aloof from them, doesn't give the impression that he gives 2 cents about anybody. Has a very relatively acerbic attitude, rather. Everything that you hear about him, it's not indicative of the things and the ingredients that you have to be a head coach in this league. Whether it was Bill Parcells back in the day to Bill Belichick right now, no matter how stern and rough around the edges they may appear, it's clear they could communicate with their players and they knew what buttons to push to maximize the potential around these guys. That doesn't appear to be the case with Chip Kelly at all. They've been outscored by 59 points in the last 2 games. When you look at them right now, the Lions went 6 straight possessions yesterday scoring, okay? For a 20 or 25-plus minute span in the middle of the game, the Eagles generated a grand total of 1 first down. Time of possession was in favor of the Detroit Lions by in excess of 15 minutes. 4 receivers for the Philadelphia Eagles in Riley Cooper, Miles Austin, who shouldn't even be in the league right now. You got Aguilar as well, along with Huff. They combined, Skip, for 6 receptions for 54 yards. And these are against the Detroit Lions, who are trying to find themselves now that they've won 3 straight games. It was an horrific performance by the Philadelphia Eagles, indicative of a franchise that didn't want to play football yesterday afternoon, and with each passing week does not appear to want to play for Chip Kelly. Philadelphia is done with this man. He asked for control. He was given all the tools. He messed it up. They're bereft of talent at multiple positions. Byron Maxwell looks like an absolute joke to the point where he needs to be giving money back to some of the Seattle Seahawks defense, the Legion of Boom and beyond, because clearly he was a product of their greatness. He didn't help. Kerry Williams actually looks better than him and looked better than he ever looked when Kerry Williams was with the Philadelphia Eagles. And DeMarco Murray, if he's not running the football effectively enough, he's hiding from interview requests, all right, to explain himself. It's just everywhere you look. It's just an absolute joke. And Jeffrey Lurie needs to do the city of Philadelphia justice and make sure that the second this offseason is over, he announces that there will be a new head coach in Philadelphia next year, because Chip Kelly doesn't appear to want to be here. His players don't appear to want to play for him. And I can assure you, as somebody who considers Philadelphia his second home, the city of Philadelphia doesn't want Chip Kelly here. The sooner he leaves, the better, period.
I second every emotion you just gave us. I agree with every point you just made and then some. I also agree with your scenario whereby if one of the top jobs open, the officials at, let's say, USC or LSU, if in fact Les Miles is fired pretty soon, if they came to Mr. Lurie and in turn to Chip Kelly and said, we need you now, there's a chance that Chip Kelly would say, would you please let me go, and that Mr. Lurie would quickly let him go. And yet, in the big picture, I want to be fair here. Chip Kelly went 10-6 in his first year in Philadelphia and did make the playoffs and lost a home playoff game to New Orleans. Second year, he did go 10-6 last year, but he missed the playoffs. And I'm going to remind everybody that 1 year ago yesterday, he got his Eagles to 9-3 as they humiliated my Dallas Cowboys on the Thanksgiving stage at Jerry World. And as you know, Stephen A. Smith, from that point forward, they crumbled. Since Thanksgiving last year, 9-3, Chip's Eagles have gone 10-15. 10-15. And I could be wrong, but as I look down their schedule, it has 5-11 written all over it. I'm giving them one more win. Who knows? The way they're playing right now, they could lose them all. Because I'm with you. It appeared to me yesterday this team has quit on Chip Kelly. I'm not talking about boycott quit. I'm talking about emotionally, psychologically, heart's just not in it anymore. Quit. Yep, I'm with you.
So am I.
Because they had high expectations. Just everybody was picking them to win the NFC East, including you. They were a consensus runaway pick to win the East. And look at them now. Look at them yesterday, allow 430 total yards. And again, we know Chip's expertise is not defense, but he's got to be responsible. We know that Chip, as you pointed out to me all year long, has become the de facto GM of this team. So he's responsible for all of this mess. It's all on his doorstep. He brought all this upon himself, and he deserves to take the blame and the fall for all of the above. It's going nowhere fast. You could make a case, Stephen A., that he still doesn't have his kind of quarterback. I guess the Eagles management can make the case that if next year he could land maybe a Johnny Manziel, maybe a Kaepernick, maybe an RG3, I don't know, one of those his kind of running quarterbacks, maybe they would give him another shot. But I'm with you. I trust your judgment about Philadelphia. Philadelphia is done with Chip, and that would mean that the owner and management are probably going to need to be done with Chip before this year or when this year is over.
Well, let's make sure we understand exactly what we're both saying here. No one is saying that Chip Kelly can't coach, meaning from an X's and O's perspective. But we have all acknowledged that X's and O's are only one component to coaching. The other things it includes is the ability to motivate, to get guys to want to, peel that extra oomph out of themselves to perform, not just for themselves, but for you as well. The Eagles seem devoid of that capability under the stewardship of Chip Kelly. Then you go into the moves that he made. Certainly, Howie Roseman, who was the GM before Chip Kelly walked up in there, demanding Jeffrey Lurie give him the keys to the reins and let him, make personnel decisions. Howie Roseman put some of these guys on this squad as well. Okay, so he deserves some culpability right up until the moment you realize that, Chip Kelly is the one that asked for it. He changed like 11 different players. About 6 to 7 different reserves got significantly more playing time and played more of a pivotal role. Why is Miles Austin on this squad? This guy, I like him. He's a nice person. Can't play football on this level anymore. He just seems overmatched and pretty much done. Makes no sense whatsoever. So when you look at all of these different things and the fact that Chip Kelly asked for this power, and he asked for the power and the ability not just to pick players, but position them where they should be, where they want to be, et cetera, it's all on him. And then to repeatedly appear aloof and distant and to be somebody that cannot seem to galvanize the troops. I do understand that it was a short week. After getting shellacked by Tampa, you have to turn around and offer 3 days practice and perform on Thanksgiving Day. I know there's this belief that somehow, some way, they'll perform better against the New England Patriots. But I would still say folks are short-sighted. They're not seeing the big picture. Chip Kelly has to go because these guys are NFL players. They understand what you know, and you consistently remind us of, Skip, constantly, that talent is what it's all about on the NFL level. And they don't believe that Chip Kelly put them in the best position to win because they see what Jeremy Maclin could still do. They see what Deshaun Jackson could still do. They see what LaShawn McCoy could still do. And they're saying to themselves, how could you do all of this? This is what Philadelphia is seeing now as well. He has to accept accountability for this as opposed to giving it lip service. But the fact of the matter is we can't tell because all we see from Chip Kelly is a person who either does not care or comes across as so aloof and so distant that he doesn't appear to feel the pulse of Philadelphia. And if you know anything about Philadelphia, Skip, you have to feel the pulse of the people in this town in order to feel embraced by it. If you do not do that, they're going to get you up out of here. And I'm telling you, they want Chip Kelly gone today. They're upset they got to wait 5 weeks. They want him fired today.
Sure. I got it. And I will add one question to the ones you asked. How is Sam Bradford on this team? You realize he traded Foles for Sam Bradford when everyone in the league was down on Sam Bradford. Can't stay healthy, inconsistent at best, never strong in the pocket. I told you before he was drafted, I never bought into him when he was playing for the team I root for, the Oklahoma Sooners. And yet Chip Kelly said, watch this. Watch what I can do with Sam Bradford, and I'm still waiting and watching coach. We all know Chip Kelly wanted to be the star of this show, and look at it now. And Stephen A., let me finish this by framing it. You realize 3 weeks ago, I think we all looked at the Eagles' schedule and said, wow, they got an easy run here, and they might even break away at the top of the NFC East because we know they had Miami and Tampa at home and then a game at Detroit when it looked like Detroit was the woeful Lions, 1-7. And they lost all three, and they lost the last two by giving up 5 touchdown passes and 5 more touchdown passes. He has to go. And again, I hope for everyone's sake, a college scenario opens up quickly so that everybody can cut bait cleanly and quickly for the sake of the Eagles fans.
That's what he wants. The Philadelphia Eagles are not a university or an institution of higher learning where you're the head coach and the program is yours. It's a professional NFL franchise. It's no place for Chip Kelly. He needs to go.
You guys are right. The pulse of Philadelphia is for real. And interestingly, after their loss to the Lions, Eagles defensive coordinator Billy Davis insisted that Chip Kelly is going to remain there even after the season. But then again, the decision is not up to him, so we'll see what happens.
What's better than all pumpkin everything? Everything you need on GoPhone from AT&T. For $40 a month after a $5 auto refill discount, you get unlimited talk, text, and data usage with the first 1.5 gigabytes at high speed. So you can post pumpkin lattes, stream pumpkin parties, share sweet nothings over pumpkin stuffing. Okay, maybe I went a little too far, but it's unlimited, so you can too.
Go to the closest AT&T store and ask for GoPhone for $40 a month after a $5 auto refill discount with no annual contract and no credit check. Plus, get unlimited talk, text, and data usage with the first 1.5 gigabytes at high speed. AT&T, mobilizing your world.
First payment is $45. $5 discount applied to monthly rate plan charge upon enrollment in auto refill. After first 1.5 gigabytes, get data speeds up to 128 kilobytes per second. Additional charges and restrictions apply. See store for details.
So 3 games are in the books, but let's look ahead to Sunday night's primetime matchup between the undefeated Patriots and the Peyton Manning-less Broncos. So New England is dealing with a litany of injuries. As you can see, Dion Lewis, Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman, Aaron Dobson, the list goes on. Skip, let's go to you first. How fearful are you of this game?
Well, I'm not going to go to fearful. I'm not going to use scared, but I am extremely concerned because obviously throughout Tom Brady's career, Denver has been his house of horrors. Tom Brady in Denver against the Broncos is 2-5 in his career. The 2 victories are over our very own Danny Cannell back in 2003 when he was the starting quarterback for the Broncos. And then, of course, our beloved and your friend Tim Tebow, and that was in 2011 at Denver. Tom Brady over Tim Tebow as the starting quarterback. Otherwise, Mr. Smith, Tom Brady has lost in Denver to ESPN analyst now Brian Greasy. He lost twice to Jake Plummer in 2005. That was during the season and in the postseason. He even lost to Kyle Orton at Denver. 2-5 at Denver. I'm going to say that even though Danny Amendola was a limited participant in practice this week, just a guess, I don't think he'll be able to go. So that means the starting wide receivers for Tom Brady's offense, other than obviously we all know who's at tight end, so that's a big plus. But at the wide receivers, you have Brandon LaFell, and you have an undrafted rookie free agent named Chris Harper in the slot. So that's what he's going to have to contend with while contending with one of the top, 2 or 3 defenses in Denver's defense. But do not forget, Tom Brady's defense is now number 1 in points allowed in the National Football League. So I think New England's defense will cause Brock Osweiler a whole lot more trouble than the Chicago Bears defense was able to cause Brock Osweiler in Chicago last Sunday in his first NFL start. And finally, the reason I am still going to pick Tom Brady is that since Deflategate, Tom Brady has been on the greatest roll, starting with last year's Super Bowl, I have ever witnessed any quarterback ever get on in the National Football League as long as I've been studying the National Football League. So in the end, I got close, I got low scoring, I got 20-17 Tom Brady over Brock Osweiler.
You know what, Skip Bayless? I said when we were talking weeks ago about the possibility of New England running the table and going undefeated in the regular season, I said there was no way that was going to happen. I thought that the Giants would give them a real run for their money, but they would beat the Giants. They ended up doing that. I thought that November 29th, this Sunday against Denver in the Mile High City, I definitely thought that that was a viable possibility. And if they didn't lose that game, then they would lose on December 27th to the New York Jets. And then Peyton Manning went down. And obviously he went down, and somebody named Brock Osweiler out of Arizona State, I wasn't sold on him. And I said, there's no way. Then I watched him perform against the Chicago Bears last week. Relatively a decent performance. Wasn't pedestrian, wasn't knock your socks off either, but 20 for 27, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, not a single interception. It's not a bad thing. And then I thought about it long and hard, and I said, you know what, Skip Bayless? I still think Denver could possibly win this game. Now, New England can be the favorites, but going just on a hunch, I'm going to roll with the Denver Broncos to win this game, Skip. I'm going to pick them to win this game somewhere along the lines like 27-23. I think that when you look, first of all, last week against Chicago where they barely won, you got to remember he had second-year wide receiver Cody Latimer as your second receiver because Emmanuel Sanders had sat out due to that high ankle sprain.
Yep.
Well, he came back to practice Wednesday, stopped limping.
He did.
Feels good, feels like he's going to be ready to go. So if he's ready to go, Skip, with Demaryius Thomas on the outside and a guy in Osweiler who has a strong enough arm to at least make that a legitimate threat for guys that can get open, then you got 2 interior individuals at your tight end spot in both Owen Daniels and Vernon Davis, so you can go with the 2 tight end lineup as well. Then you got Ronnie Hillman, some running back for the Denver Broncos, who's finally decided to show up and record a 100-yard game. That's what Ronnie Hillman did last week. So I look at it from that perspective. And I say offensively, is it capable that they could put up some points against New England? Yeah, New England doesn't break, but they can bend a little bit, and there are those games, particularly when they're on the road, when things are a bit more interesting than one anticipate, i.e. the Giants. Now we get to their defense, and then I look at this defense, and that's when it really rings home for me. We know that Tom Brady is big time. We know that Rob Gronkowski is big time. But when I look at the Denver Broncos, I say to myself, well, let me look at this for a second here. Aqib Talib is back. Chris Harris is there. Okay, you got T.J. Ward. You got Von Miller chasing after the quarterback. And you've got people in Von Miller and others that are capable in any way, or T.J. Ward to some degree, of spying Rob Gronkowski. There is no Deion Lewis. There is no Julian Edelman. Now there's no Danny Amendola, okay? Nor an Aaron Dobson. So when you have those 4 individuals that are all out, even though New England has a week to prepare for this game, it's simply about Brady and Gronkowski with the hope that LeGarrette Blount will run the football effectively. Excuse me. So I look at it and I say to myself, this is a game Denver can win. because it's New England, obviously if they win, it's not going to surprise you. But I'm going to go strictly on a hunch here that with Emmanuel Sanders returning and all the other requisite weapons around Brock Osweiler, due to the fact that it's in the Mile High City, and the New England Patriots have incurred 2 additional injuries this past weekend in Amendola and Dobson, I'm going to be of the mindset that this is a game Denver can take. Again, my score is going to be 27-23.
And I take absolutely no issue with your upset prediction. There's a lot of merit to it. I can't disagree with the points you just made. You well could be right. In fact, you could be so right, you might be on the right side of this game with your pick. New England favored right now by 3 at Denver.
Yeah.
But I didn't bring up the one glaring bad performance that Tom Brady had at Denver, which was 2 playoffs ago, straight up against his arch rival Peyton Manning. And I told you on that Monday after that game, that's the worst playoff game I've ever seen Tom Brady play. He missed open receiver after open receiver, most significantly a Julian Edelman who was wide open at a crucial point in the game. And I'm just going to say that Tom Brady knows all about that game, that he's still holding that one at the bottom of his heart, and he's going to say, I got to make amends. I owe my team one big game on one big stage Sunday night in Denver as we march toward a potential 16-0. And even as shorthanded as they are, as shorthanded as the offensive line has been all year long, makeshift at best, at least there's going to be no DeMarcus Ware on the other side. He's out for this game. So maybe they can mostly double-team Von Miller. Maybe they can keep him somewhat at bay as Tom Brady gets rid of the ball fairly quickly, and he pulls this off. And if he does, I'm going to say it will clinch it for me that he's the MVP of this season.
Well, I'll say that it'll clinch it for me that they're probably going to run the table during the regular season, because if they win a game like this, at some point in time, the other guys are going to come back. Not to mention the fact that when I'm looking at Denver, it's not just Von Miller. I'm looking at a Brandon Marshall. I'm looking at a Trevathan. I'm looking at this kid, Shaquille Barrett, who's no scrub. And I'm looking at a defense that's capable, if not getting to Tom Brady, at least keying on Rob Gronkowski in some way. So the combination of all of those things, to me, this is a game that Denver can win. They need to be up for it. They need to be ready. And Osweiler doesn't need to turn the ball over, and they need to run the football effectively. That's a lot of things that need to happen in order for them to meet to beat the surgeons that are the New England Patriots. But if any team can do it, I think personnel-wise, this team is equipped to do it. I'm going to go strictly on a hunch here, knowing that New England deserves to be the favorite due to their efficiencies while Denver's still trying to figure stuff out. And it is Brady against Osweiler. But I'm going to go on a hunch that this defense is going to raise up to another level. They're going to be elite in this game. And as a result, they'll get about 7 points for you. And I think Osweiler will put in the other 20 with the crew that they have. And I think it'll be enough for them to win this game on Sunday night.
Final point. I got to give you this one. That, remember, Brock Osweiler did beat the Chicago Bears defense at Chicago, and that same Bears defense just beat Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau. So maybe I'm underestimating what Brock Osweiler did, because that defense beat Aaron Rodgers. So I'm just throwing that out.
They beat Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb, and James Jones.
Oh,
that's who they beat.
I got it.
Okay.
All right, Stephen A. Smith, we'll see if your hunch is right. He's choosing the Broncos 27-23. Skip choosing the Patriots. ESPN's Football Power Index is giving the Patriots a 67% chance to win that game, so it sides with Skip. We'll see what happens.
I seen somewhere we was going to have like 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, and I don't know how many other are. The disrespect was just like through the roof. Like I said, I had to go and watch 300 because of it. I had to get myself physically, mentally prepared and amped up to the point where I didn't want him to catch a single ball. I was on him just like white on rice, man. I didn't care. And I was able to do it because of great teammates that I have in the back secondary, man. Even Skip Bayless, we're going to give thanks for him picking us as 4-point underdog. I hope he's happy right now at home eating crow. I'm going to start putting faces and names on these people who start picking us, because obviously they are tremendously wrong.
Check out Josh Norman getting all fired up and calling out our very own Skip. He feels his Carolina Panthers, who are 11-0, by the way, are being completely disrespected. So, Skip, what's your reaction to his comments?
Josh, I was at home. I was not happy, and all the rest of the night, all I ate was crow. All I've eaten on this show all morning today, thanks to my friend Stephen A. Smith, I've only eaten crow. Now, back to my relationship, so to speak, with Josh Norman. On October 25th, Stephen A., I tweeted that Josh Norman was turning into this season's Richard Sherman, and I meant that as the highest supreme compliment to Josh Norman. However, I meant it only in his on-the-field performance, not off the field, and now it's starting to sound like Josh is turning into the Richard Sherman we used to know 2, 3, 4 years ago, the guy who talked and backed it up and backed it off the field. So now to the shot that he took at me, you didn't hear this in the sound, but I read this morning that as he started to go after me, one of his teammates standing nearby interjected, "Hey, Skip's a Cowboy fan," as in, give him a little break here. I am, Josh. I'm a lifelong Cowboy fan. I am blue to the core. Metallic blue. I attended my first Cowboy game in 1960, their first year, an expansion year. I was at the Cotton Bowl for a game against the then St. Louis Cardinals. So I have nothing to apologize about picking my Cowboys to win this game yesterday. There's no shame in me predicting that game because I was hanging in till death do us part this football season with my Dallas Cowboys. But speaking of shame, I was ashamed of Dez Bryant yesterday because, Josh, I congratulate you. You shut him down on the field and you got into his head early and often. And on Tony Romo's first interception, the first pick six, you engaged in so much trash talk that Dez was so distracted he kept talking to you when he could have hustled back and very possibly made the tackle on the cutback run that helped make that player get to the end zone. So, again, I congratulate you. I do not congratulate Dez Bryant. I thought, Dez, you were turning into a team leader, and you let Josh Norman get to you. He shut you down in the first half. I know that Tony Romo missed you twice when I thought you were open for potential touchdowns. But for the most part, you held him to no catches in the first half and 2 very insignificant catches for the game. So to the victor go the spoils. You deserved to talk yesterday, but I am not going to apologize for my prediction as a Cowboy fan. Your thoughts, Stephen A. Smith?
Well, my thought number one is, you're entitled to pick who you want to, but I want to take a moment to give Josh Norman props. Well, first of all, I picked Carolina, and he was one of the primary reasons why I picked him because I knew he was going to shut down whoever he was on. That's number one. Number two, the reason I want to give him props is because, Skip, to me, if you're going to take a moment to come after somebody in the media, I think that's the way you do it. I mean, I found nothing remotely disrespectful about what he was saying. He was just saying, hey, yeah, I'm going to put faces to names for everybody who doubt us. Like, yeah, you doubted us. Look what we did. That's all in fun. That's what sports is all about. We do it to them. Them doing it to us is no big deal. He ain't call you a liar. He didn't, he wasn't acerbic and trying to be vicious and trying to disrespect you. It was nothing like that. He was just saying, wait a minute now. What did I tell y'all? Y'all keep sleeping on us. And by the way, they walked into Dallas undefeated at 10-0. And Dallas Cowboys were 3-7, and they were the favorites. So you had a whole bunch of peeps in that locker room that were incredibly offended, and rightfully so, that people, whether it be you who's a Cowboy fan or others who weren't, picking them as favorites, they felt very, very disrespected. A matter of fact, even though you're a Cowboy fan, he probably held it against you because he probably think you influenced those others out there who did favor them over the Carolina Panthers. So it's actually a compliment as opposed to an insult. In the end, though, what it comes down to is this. If we have any questions about the Carolina Panthers, it comes down to Cam Newton and the weapons available to him because the offense wasn't that great yesterday. the defense carried them. This defense is big time. It is legit. And Coach Ron Rivera deserves a boatload of credit for it. I'm very, very big on this. Whatever your signature is, whatever got you to an elevated position in your respective career, that's what you need to live by. Ron Rivera, his signature is defense. That's what he was synonymous with. If Carolina was undefeated, but they had a high-powered offense and their defense stunk up the joint, I still wouldn't like them, because that would mean that you ain't living up to the cachet that ultimately got you to the position that you're in. But in this case, this man's signature is defense, and this defense is big time. And I give Ron Rivera a boatload of credit for that, because that's what they're riding to the promised land. And this defense can go up against anybody. It is special.
Okay, I agree with you. I'm giving all the props to Josh Norman. I'm giving all the offensive props to Cam Newton. We didn't get a chance to really give Carolina enough credit because Cam Newton, especially on third down, shredded my Cowboy defense with 5 huge big completions that were right on the money. So I congratulate both of those stars of the game. But I'm going to remind Josh, I wasn't the only analyst picking the Dallas Cowboys. I heard a number of them, and I will not put names to faces with the analysts who picked my Dallas Cowboys, but I heard them on pregame shows yesterday. Now, to your point that Carolina was a 1-point underdog, by game time they had been bet into a 1-point favorite. So just for the record, let's keep that straight. And then finally, this time it's very different from what happened to the Philadelphia Eagles last year. Fortunately for the Carolina Panthers, in 2 weeks, they don't have to turn around and play Dallas again at their place like the Eagles did last year when Des Bryant was able to say, you guys over-celebrated at Jerry World. I'm going to get even with you in Philly, and my Cowboys got even. So it's easier for the Carolina Panthers to talk because they won't see Dallas for the rest of this year, and God knows when they might not see them for several years, for all I know. So the point is, to the victor go the spoils. Way to go, Josh.
That's it. That's all.
All right, so the Carolina Panthers, they get some little time off, 10 days until they travel to New Orleans next. Jerry's world is looking very dim these days. The Cowboys dropped 7 straight with Tony Romo out, and then in his second game back from a broken clavicle, the Cowboys fell to the Panthers and lost Romo for the rest of the season after he re-injured that left collarbone. And that's according to ESPN's Ed Werder. He's expected to undergo additional tests today. So, gentlemen, what is Romo's future in Dallas? Skip, let's go to you first.
Prim, Stephen A., as Stephen A. said to open the show, it's iffy at best to me. I'm pretty deflated by what I saw yesterday because, as we all know, third time he's injured or re-injured that shoulder, that collarbone, that clavicle, and it gets more and more susceptible to injury each time. This last time, the second time, they opted this year not to have surgery on it. So if, in fact, it is fractured again, I have no idea until we hear the test results today. I'm hoping that Tony would undergo surgery on it so they could get it fixed quickly and try to get it right completely, as well as they can get it right for the opening of training camp. But as we know, Tony's 35. He'll be 36 in April. And even though he, to me, still looks, dare I say, boyish, or he still has that youthful look about him, he's getting up there in age for an NFL quarterback. That's 12 seasons now in the NFL, 10 seasons as starter. And just me, I've been far more worried about his back than I have about his clavicle because he's got a chronically bad back. So bad that he has had to quit his off-season love, which might be his first love in his sports life, which is golf. He cannot play golf ever again, say his doctors, until he wants to stop playing football. So I worry about the back. It's always something, cracked ribs. He hasn't had a knee yet, hasn't had the concussion syndrome yet. But I don't know, Stephen A. It doesn't look good for me. And yet I don't know where else they turn because he got his big lifetime deal with Jerry Jones, and his cap hits the next 4 years, 4 years left on this deal, are $21 million, 25, 25, and $24 million. Huge cap hits that are going to be tough to dig out from under if, in fact, he does prove to be completely unreliably brittle going forward. Now, obviously, Johnny Manziel continues to have big issues in Cleveland. According to Jay Glazer of Fox, he lied to his team, lied to his head coach about when that video that we saw last week was actually taken. He said it was earlier when, in fact, they found out that it was, in fact, last Thursday, Friday. So does that mean the end of Johnny in Cleveland? Would Jerry Jones take a shot on a young man who I said the other day still has big, bad issues off the field that he clearly has not yet dealt with? Maybe Jerry would go that direction. They do have a Kellen Moore that Scott Linehan, the coordinator, just absolutely loves. I loved Kellen Moore when he was at Boise State. I don't think that's sort of Jerry's cup of tea. I don't think that's the showman style that Jerry would want in Kellen Moore, who's pretty boring as a sort of dink and dunk quarterback. So it's time to find a plan B fairly quickly. And I don't know what that is, but if in fact the Cowboys fall into the first pick in the draft, maybe they could think about taking a quarterback in this draft.
Well, I echo all of those sentiments. I mean, I think there's reasons for concern because he's climbing up there in age. He's not the healthiest individual in the world, and since they went away from DeMarco Murray, you don't have somebody that you can rely upon to shoulder the workload that DeMarco Murray shouldered last year in assisting Tony Romo and the Dallas Cowboys going to 12-4. For the previous 4 years before this season, Tony Romo pretty much hasn't missed anything. He's played 16 games in 2 seasons, 15 in the other 2. Prior to that, in 2010, he had only played 6 games, missing 10 games. And so, you know, it's not like his history in terms of injuries has been so prolific that he's been unable to produce. But there have been nicks and knacks injuries, style injuries rather, that would inhibit his ability to do the kind of things or with 100% health. And so when you look at it from that perspective and the fact that he only has 2 playoff victories in a 10-year career, the bottom line is this: Tony Romo is incredibly talented. He accumulates numbers. He's no scrub, but that does not mean he's not overrated. Too many times we hear the word great when it comes to Tony Romo. Well, why are you so great continuously when the results continuously are anything but great? Last year's 12-4 season. Prior to that, there were 3 consecutive 8-8 seasons. Prior to that, there was a 6-10 season. So when you look at it from that perspective, the fact of the matter is Tony Romo or somebody that has been labeled great on many, many occasions, and he's one of the few people in NFL history that's had the word great associated with his name when there's not one single productive result that you can attach greatness to. Because when you got just 2 playoff victories in a 10-year career, look, to win a Super Bowl, Skip, you have to win a minimum of 3 playoff games in 1 year. This dude has 2 in 10 years. He doesn't get it done. And that's what this comes down to. It ain't all his fault. And when I saw his wife with her head bowed on the table in the suite when she saw him go down in the 3rd quarter, I felt terrible for him. To be honest with you, all joking aside, you don't wish that on anybody. You certainly don't wish that on him and his wonderful family. But in the end, if you're Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, you need to think about a plan B. Because even when he's healthy, Tony Romo hasn't produced the results for you. That was when he was younger and healthier. Now he's older and less healthy. But you're going to depend on him moving forward? Well, good luck with that, because I don't see that happening to Dallas's advantage.
All right, so now let me take you one other direction, and I want to encourage you to feel free to laugh at me about this. Late last night, I had one other wild thought about what was left of my Dallas Cowboys. As I watched Brett Favre sit in the booth at NBC in the second half of the late game, and Brett Favre began to talk about what great shape he's in because he's running and swimming and biking as he prepares to do a triathlon, I was thinking, gee, he looks great. He actually looks like he could, dare I say, still play. Now, wouldn't it be just like Jerry Jones to call Brett Favre and say, hey, I got an opportunity for you here. Would you like to come and finish my season for me? And in my view, take some of the focus off the mess that Jerry and company have made with this team this year and play the last 5 games, because a week from next Sunday, the Dallas Cowboys play at Lambeau Field. Just a thought, but it's a Jerry Jones-style thought, and I thought I would just throw it out there, as crazy as it might sound.
Skip Bayless. Man, I think you need to be tested. Brett Favre is 46 years old. 46.
I know that.
And he has not played in 5 years. And you're talking about taking this man off the streets and putting him in there. You know, Skip, you have just disrespected every NFL player in the National Football League. You have just disrespected all of them. Because to sit up there and to suggest that Brett Favre can come off the streets 10 games, 11 games into a season at age 46, 5 years removed from playing football, is the ultimate form of disrespect. It extends miles beyond idiocy. It extends miles beyond insanity. It makes no sense what Brett Favre at age 46. I mean, come on, Skip. I mean, come on. Why don't you just ask Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to come back and shoot sky hooks? Why don't you just do that? Why don't you ask Hakeem Olajuwon instead of tutoring big men? You know what? Get rid of Dwight Howard. Hakeem Olajuwon. Why don't you come play the middle? I mean, come on, man. All right, that's fine. You know, what you gonna ask for next? For Joe Namath to come back and play? I mean, come on, Skip.
How about Michael Jordan?
I told you it was a wild idea, but trust me on this. I had to sit through 4 games of Matt Castle. I know he looked pretty good late last night in what was pure garbage time against the Carolina Panthers, when they had pretty much started to celebrate what looked like a 33-7 win. But I had to sit through 4 long games of this, of hide your eyes, Matt Castle. I was saying from the outhouse to the castle, and it went from the castle back to the outhouse. Do you think that Brett Favre would be better than Matt Castle? I definitely do, because this man, first ballot Hall of Famer, inducted into the Packers Ring of Honor last night, looks great. I'm sure he could still throw the heck out of the football. And behind the Dallas offensive line, I told you it's just a showmanship shot by Jerry Jones. I would say, why not? The season's over. It would be much more fun for me to watch Brett Favre than to watch Matt Castle. I'm sorry, but I said it.
I know this is a debate show, and you and I are usually on opposite ends of the spectrum. But that suggestion is so asinine, so disrespectful to NFL players, current NFL players. I mean, when you consider how physical the game is, I don't care how he looks. He hasn't been hit. Second he been hit with all that gravity, that gray come falling off his head at that point. I think it is so ridiculous. I think it is so ridiculous. I'm not playing. I think it is so ridiculous. I'm not going to even dignify it with a further response. I'm not going to do it.
At age 40, Brett Favre made you look like a fool on this show with the absolute greatest old quarterback season ever played. 33 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, and a near miss of getting a Vikings team nobody had any respect for almost to the Super Bowl. I'm sorry, he's better than Matt Castle right now.
That's after he played the previous season and the previous season before that and the previous season before that. Not after he had been gone for 6 years.
I'm not talking about trying to make the playoffs. I'm just talking about entertainment value. You'd watch.
Yeah, I'd watch him get slaughtered.
All right, let's leave it there. I mean, if Brett Favre came back again, I would definitely watch.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt. Frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
Switching gears to NBA, more so what happened off the court. TMZ released this video of Sixers rookie Jahlil Okafor getting into a fight outside a Boston nightclub early Thursday morning. He was reportedly being heckled by a fan. He was saying the Sixers can't win a game and they're all losers. Boston police say they do not plan on investigating unless someone involved in the incident comes forward to say they were the victim of a crime. So, Stephen A., let's go to you first. What are your thoughts on this video?
Well, number one, my thoughts were that it was unfortunate that Jahlil Okafor found himself in this situation. I immediately thought about what Skip Bayless always says about how nothing good comes of, when you're hanging out at night and wee hours of the night or whatever the case may be. I know Jahlil Okafor a little bit. I certainly know members of his family. Skip, just so you know, within the last couple of hours, I spoke to a few of them, including his dad. Their obviously first concern was that he was okay. That was number one. Number two, that there's no reason that he should have found himself in this position, and he has to man up and accept responsibility for having himself in this position. But also with other people that I had spoken to, they wanted to emphasize the fact that it was 3-on-1, that a teammate who Jahlil Okafor refuses to name at this time was actually struck by one of the three alleged assailants, and that ultimately Jahlil Okafor was coming to the defense of that teammate. So it was literally Jahlil against three different guys, and that's how they were looking at it. So he was trying to protect himself and obviously got fierce, and it was caught on video, and you saw what you saw. In the end, ultimately what instigated all of this is the fact that the Philadelphia 76ers are horrible. They're an abomination. Sam Hinkie has no business being the GM. As far as I'm concerned, Scott O'Neal should come from upstairs and come down and be a GM as well and recruit individuals to come and play for this franchise. What has been done to Coach Brett Brown has been an absolute atrocity, and it has trickled down to the players where the level of misery is so perpetual, so continuous, so merciless that it's hard to take. So when you put yourself in a position where you ultimately go out and you've got guys in Boston that are heckling you and bothering you and berating you, eventually your temper is going to get the best of you. And regardless of what kind of situation Jahlil Okafor found himself in terms of coming to the defense of his teammates, what's undeniable is that if he were winning and was a bit more successful, then this is not something that would have bothered him nearly as much as it has ended up doing. I will remind you, Skip, he's 19 years of age. In this one season with the Philadelphia 76ers, and we're not even 20 games in, Jahlil Okafor has already lost more games in the first month of this NBA season than he has lost in his entire life combined. Little league and, high school ball, AAU ball, college at Duke, where they're the reigning defending national champions. He's already lost more in the first month of his NBA career than he's lost in his entire life. So there's a lot of stuff that got to him, and this is what happened.
I hear everything you just said. I appreciate it all. Glad you reached out to his family. I don't know this young man, and he is just 19, but from a distance, I've always liked him a lot, liked his game a lot. He came off as mature beyond his years when he was at Duke. And in this case, again, we're back to my pet theme here, my pet peeve. According to police, it was 2 a.m. outside a Boston nightclub, and bad stuff ensued, as it often does. I don't know what happened. I'll accept what his side of it was. I don't know what the truth was, but it's pretty clear to me off watching the video that he and teammates were being heckled outside the nightclub. And you do hear, it sounds like Jahlil, though I'm not sure, yelling back, "We got money, you broke so-and-sos." Okay, I get it. We get it. They get it. The guys you're yelling at, they get it too, Jahlil. But you can't respond. You cannot engage. You cannot heckle the hecklers. You're going to get heckled. I'm sorry for you that you got drafted by the Sixers, but you did, and you're going to have to learn to live with it because you're 0-16, and you're going to get heckled. Even in Philly, you're going to get heckled if you go out to nightclubs, but especially on the road, you're really going to get heckled, especially out in the street outside a nightclub at 2 o'clock in the morning. especially in Boston. So in this case, as you know, Stephen A., you just can't respond. You got to grin and bear it. You got to look the other way. You got to ignore, because in this day and age, people will sue you, number one, and worst case, people have guns, people have knives, and they will use them in a heartbeat, maybe your heartbeat. So it's just too dangerous to exchange insults. I don't care how insulting it gets, how offensive, how degrading to your pride. You just can't fire back. You can't engage in insults. And then I don't know what happens from there. If he was defending himself, I get it. But in the end, I hope he's learned a painful lesson here, that if he's going to go out to places where most people are drinking alcohol, if not using drugs, you better be careful, and you better not wear your rabbit ears out. You better not have your thin skin after you lost to the Boston Celtics narrowly. You better be ready to look the other way and turn the other cheek and get in your car and go back to your hotel. It's a very dangerous situation that he found himself in. And Stephen A., I just hope he learned a small lesson here.
Well, what I love about and I don't love anything about the situation, but I think the part that I love about Jahlil Okafor is the people that I know he's surrounded with in terms of his family and friends. When you think about his dad, when you think about his uncle, people that I met last year while I was at the Final Four and whatever, he's insulated by men who recognize he had no business finding himself in this position. So at this particular moment in time, Jahlil Okafor doesn't just have the court of public opinion to deal with, but he's got family members who are grown men who recognize the importance of him representing himself appropriately. And they're going to be in his face about that. Plus, you know, you got other mentors that used to be in this league, like the Shaquille O'Neals of the world and others, who I have no doubt at some point will reach out to him, because you got to guard yourself. Again, Jahlil Okafor was in foreign territory. You're in Boston, Massachusetts. You're 7 feet. You're averaging 18-8. You're a member of the reigning defending national champion Duke Blue Devils. You just helped them capture a national championship. And your first year, your first month in the NBA, you've already lost 16 games and you haven't won anything. And you've lost more than you've ever lost in your life. And now, for the first time, really, you're getting heckled. It was probably never like that before, you know, because it's different when you're winning. When you're getting heckled, it's just people trying to rattle you so they can beat you. That's the mentality that you embrace. Whereas when you're losing, the level of denigration that kicks in far exceeds what most of us can imagine. And so when you look at it from that perspective, take into account that he played for Mike Krzyzewski. Take into account the fact that being from New Jersey and going down to Duke and doing some of the things that he's done, he's never been in any kind of incident like this before. So you take it with a grain of salt. You recognize the importance of it. You learn from it. Don't go out to nightclubs on the road when your team is losing. Or if you're going to do that, since you are willing to acknowledge that you got money, well, then have some security with you that can shield you from anybody trying to engage in any kind of physical confrontation with you and the company you keep. You make enough money to do that. Hell, I do that, and I don't even go out. So what's the problem? I think he'll learn from this, and I don't think it'll happen again, because I think the level of public scrutiny is alarming to people who surround him, who are the adults. They know. I spoke to them. They know this should not have happened, and I personally don't believe it'll happen again, and I think Jahlil Okafor should be given the benefit of the doubt. He's young. He made a mistake. Thank God nothing fatal happened. Let's move forward.
Well said.
All right, as far as what the Sixers will do, they said that they are aware of the situation. They're gathering additional info, but until then, they have no further comment. And the Carolina Panthers just keep on going. Cam Newton and company are 11-0, and they have now won 15 straight regular season games, tied for the longest win streak by an NFC team since the 1970 and 71 merger. So here's a look at their remaining schedule. They are at the Saints, Falcons, at the Giants, at the Falcons, and then for that last game, they will host the Buccaneers. So, Stephen A., let's go to you first. Will the Panthers go undefeated this year?
I don't believe they will. I believe whether it's against the Saints, the Giants, or the Falcons, I think they'll lose at least one of those road games. I could see them finishing 14-1. 15-1, possibly 14-2. But they will have the number 1 seed in the NFC. The road to the Super Bowl will have to come through Charlotte, North Carolina. And I think that at this point in time, it comes down between them and Arizona. But do I think they'll go undefeated? No, I don't think so. I think they'll lose one of these road games because I think at some point in time, that offense is not going to come through for them. Cam Newton has been absolutely sensational. Greg Olsen has been highly productive. But at some point, you can check some of those offensive weapons and neutralize Cam because of it and make a game very interesting. And then some breaks might not go their way. The defense is very reliable. The offense, not so much outside of Cam. And I think because of that, whether it's at New Orleans, at Atlanta, or at the New York Giants, I think one, possibly two of those games they can be had.
I'm not with you on this one. I think they can win all the games you just mentioned. New Orleans, as we know, plays little to no defense, and even at New Orleans, I just think Carolina's defense was so impressive yesterday that I think they can hang in with Drew Brees and score a lot on Drew Brees' defense. And then at the Giants, I think that'll be the dicey game for them because your Giants can be giant killers. As we know, they almost giant killed New England, and Eli tends to play biggest in these kind of big games. So I'd give the Giants a shot there, but I still think Carolina's such a better football team overall than the Giants. Atlanta has just fallen back in the pack. I just don't know. It's a division rival. Could they win one of those games, the Falcons? I'm not sure about that. I think Carolina is considerably better than Atlanta. The only game I see them losing, Stephen A., is that last game at home to Tampa Bay, and it would only be because they had so clinched that they wouldn't need to play anybody against an up-and-coming Bucs team that I think will get a little better each week building toward the end of the year, and may need that they could get in the wild card race and may need that game more than Carolina does. So I'm seeing 15-1, and I got to tell you, with that defense playing at that high of a level, that running attack so solid with John Stewart obviously between the tackles and Cam on the read option or the quarterback draw, and Cam making so many big plays on third down. He's not what I would call an elite sort of down-to-down passer. He can be sometimes a little off target, but he was just deadly yesterday. And I mentioned earlier in the show, against my Cowboys defense, which has been pretty good, Cam Newton with his arm converted 3rd and 5, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 17, and 3rd and 10. Anybody who knows that game know that he threw bullets on those downs to barely open receivers for huge completions. So when he's playing that clutch at key moments, man, they are going to be hard to beat. And with everybody sort of falling back in the NFC right now, Green Bay's fallen back to earth. I'm still not sure about Seattle. We do respect Arizona. Is it going to be Arizona at Carolina? I would give the Panthers the edge in that game to get to the Super Bowl.
Well, I think regardless of the superlatives you threw out there, keep in mind they're still a 28th ranked passing offense in the NFL. And even though they got number 3 overall in terms of, well, I think that even though they've got number 3 overall in terms of points, the issue is that their defense puts them in position to score points. When you look at the field goals, when you look at their touchdown drive, it was because the defense made that happen for them. And I think that at some point in time, the defense is just going to be what it is. It's going to shut you down. But at the same time, you might run into a team, Skip, that's not turning the ball over, not throwing interceptions, not fumbling. And instead, they just punt. And that offense needs to methodically drive down the field consistently. And I don't think that their offense is going to be able to do that on a week-in, week-out basis. At some point in time, somebody may catch them. But I just think that means you're one game or 2 games in the regular season. I actually think that Carolina will be more formidable in the playoffs if they lose a game or 2 as opposed to going into the playoffs undefeated.
That's probably true. I would agree with that. But either way, they're going to be formidable. And as you say, they're going to have home field. And it's going to be very difficult for anybody else in this year's NFC to get through Carolina.
I agree with that.
Looking ahead to Sunday, we've got 12 games on the docket. The Seahawks host Big Ben and the Steelers. Seattle is 0-4 this season when facing teams over 500, and the Steelers are 6-4, which is over 500 for all you math whizzes. So, Stephen A., who's going to win?
As much as I hate to say this, Skip Bayless, I think the Seattle Seahawks are going to win this game. They're on their home turf. They got embarrassed on their home turf by the Arizona Cardinals, giving up 39 points. They're going up against a high-powered Steelers offense, but a Steelers defense that has a suspect secondary. They've only got 27 sacks on the season. Their leading sack getter is Stephon Tuitt with 4.5. They really struggle in getting at the quarterback, and Skip, 3 of their top 5 tacklers are leading them in tackles. You know why? Because you can get into their secondary. That's why, because they rank 28th against the pass defensively. So I look at it from that perspective. I look at the fact that Russell Wilson's primary problems has been the fact that he's lacked protection, and I don't think that's going to be the case in this game. He's elusive. I think he can make things happen. I think Rawls could potentially do some things for you, or at least be a formidable enough threat to assist in your passing game because he's coming out of the backfield. They'll have to watch all of that. I think the combination of all of those things, along with the level of urgency Seattle has, which is slightly a tad bit more than the Steelers because they're 5-5 and the Steelers rather are 6-4. I just think because this game is in Seattle with all those components that I mentioned, I can see Seattle winning a game like this, but it'll be tight. I'm thinking something along the lines of 30-28.
So I have a question. How difficult was this for you to make this pick? Because you're a lifelong Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and Seattle is your pick to win the Super Bowl. So mixed emotions, right?
Mixed emotions, absolutely.
Yet you came down on the side of Seattle. Is that to protect your pick? Is that your picking pride talking? Or is that just your head?
No. If they were in Pittsburgh, I would think differently. But being in Seattle with that noise and everything else, combined with the way the Steelers secondary has looked, I'm just not confident in the Steelers secondary. That's why I haven't been sold on them all year, because of that secondary.
Okay, I basically agree with you, and I definitely agree with your conclusion here. But I have to tell you, of all the games Sunday, even more so than the Tom Brady at Denver game, this is the most intriguing game because of the matchup.
I agree.
To me, Ben's offense is the most explosive in pro football. On any given Sunday, Pittsburgh can just explode. And obviously, it's now in Seattle facing what used to be the NFL's best defense, but has not been the NFL's best defense. So, again, is it time for Seattle to rise and shine here at 5-5? Obviously, this game means to me a little more as a sink or swim game to Seattle at home than it means to 6-4 Pittsburgh on the road. But in the end, Stephen A., there's no more Marshawn Lynch, at least for the foreseeable future. And I like the Rawls kid, but this team seemed to feed off beast mode, and there's no more beast mode to feed off of.
Well, I think Rawls has been looking better than beast mode because beast mode has been anything but this year with his hernia injuries, and not only that, his lack of enthusiasm because of what happened in the Super Bowl. So let's take all of that things into consideration. I definitely think that this is a fresh move in a fresh direction. Again, I think the Steelers offense will show up. It's their secondary I have an issue with. I don't trust them.
Well, I hear you, which is why I'm going to go Seattle 27, Pittsburgh 24. So I'm right in your ballpark of score.
All right, gentlemen. Skip, I hope you recover from your Cowboys loss. Stephen A., I hope you get your voice back. I'm Prim Saripapat. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll be right back on Monday. Thanks for listening to the First Take podcast. You can catch First Take Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN2.
The Dolphins and Jets find themselves right in the middle of a jam-packed race for the AFC wild card. Every win is critical. Coverage of the Dolphins and Jets. Sunday at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio.